Good morning, you all. Welcome to First Congregational Church. This morning I am here at church and I'm in the sanctuary right now. And it's so quiet here, outside and inside, that in the hush you can nearly feel the silence around you. Our church is really quiet this morning. And even though the church is empty, our church is living and breathing. We are alive. So many of us are connecting in different ways, even though we can't go to church this morning. We connect by the phone, over text, over Facebook, and everything else. And even as wonderful as this church building is, this sanctuary, which I dearly love, even as it allows us to do all kinds of ministry, the church are we who are connected with one another. And this morning I'm going to be walking, so just take some time, settle in, arrive here at First Congregational Church. And I'll be starting out by playing for us Day by Day. If you know this song, I invite you to join along. If you don't, just listen in and settle in to get to church. So just as the Wi-Fi just left us for a second, my cords left me too, and I will restart day by day. Friends, it's the fifth Sunday of Lent. Hard to believe how these days and weeks have just gotten to us. So much has happened, and yet we are still in the middle of Lent. 2 weeks until Easter, and this week our scripture text is from John 11. It's actually the story where Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. So I see her standing there. She has a wet washcloth in her hand, wiping the sweat off his brow. But nothing she's doing can make the fever break. Her brother Lazarus is sick, and she has already notified all the relatives. Martha, she is a doer and accomplisher, and when she does things right, normally things go well. But right now, nothing what she can do seems to be going right. Her brother Lazarus, she took care of him when he was a small kid, and now, after weeks or days or hours maybe, she can't remember, he has breathed his last breath. She simply cannot even go there to feel what it is like. So she does what she does best. She gets herself into busyness. It's time to clean the house, make the cakes for the funeral guests, take care of her sister Mary, who was all over the place and has been sobbing for the last 4 days and is beside herself. Call the undertaker, and then as one last big service to her brother Lazarus, make sure that he is wrapped in his burial cloth, and then that he gets put into a tomb. When the wedding guests arrive, and they trickle in, she manages to give a sense of equanimity and composure. She greets the guests, she's gracious. When they offer their condolences, she just nods. And when they cry, she comforts them. But on the inside, she just feels numb and dead. So when she hears that their good friend Jesus is arriving to pay his respects, she excuses herself from the crowd. She goes outdoor, walks down the road, and there he is. And there are no pleasantries on her side, no how are you doing, no social niceties. She comes right to the point and she says to him, if you had been here, this would have not happened. And he looks at her and says, you know that Lazarus will be raised from the dead. And Martha, always the straight-A student who knew her catechism in Sabbath school, she knows all this stuff. She, like Jesus, belonged to a group in Judaism where they believed that the arc of justice, the arc of the universe will lead towards justice, that God will be there at the end of days, that the perpetrators will not get away with their things, and parents who stand at the graves of their children, that's too much. She believes that. And yet, she doesn't know what to do with that. So she says to Jesus, yep, I know that is true. And if I imagine her voice, I can hear that sense of grief and hardness, anger maybe even. My sister is a mess. I don't know what to do. My brother is dead, and you're talking about some future resurrection. And whether Jesus has heard what she has said or not, whether he has heard the grief in her voice, he just simply carries on and says, I am the resurrection and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, though they might die, shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. And Martha just does not know what to say about this. Just another kind of truism. So she responds with a truism of her own sort, and she says, well, yes, I know you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. And the unspoken piece is, so what? So she turns around, dazed and settled, makes her way home. Yes, she makes her way home, not knowing what to do with herself. She comes into the house where all the guests are, and she takes her sister Mary aside, who is still sobbing, and she says to her, Mary, how about you go and talk with him? Jesus is there. And she thinks maybe some fresh air will help clear Mary's head and to talk with Jesus. So Mary goes out and comes to Jesus, and Mary does what she does best. She falls at his feet, and she starts sobbing. Friends, often when we talk about this story in John 11, we think about Lazarus and Jesus. We talk about Lazarus who has died. But I tell you that this is actually a story about three siblings. Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. Mary was completely lost and has been sobbing the last days and maybe on the edge of her sanity. Martha, whose normal MO has been to be composed and controlled, and with that she's been able to accomplish everything in life, she's run against a wall. It's not working anymore, and she's feeling numb and unsettled. And of course, Lazarus, who has died. So there the three of them are, each encased in their own form of deadness, so to speak, each in their own kind of tomb. There is so much that can bind us in our life. There's so much that can really hurt us. This last week I was talking with a friend who works in a hospital, and she was telling me it's just getting too much. She's there working long hours, and all the fear and all the grief and all the unknownness is getting to her. She just wants to crawl under a blanket. She wants to vanish, be gone. And she said, let me just wake up when it's all over. There are so many ways that we can withdraw. My friend did it by wanting to sleep. I myself can find myself looking at the news feed every few minutes. What other change of news is there? Looking at different variations of the same story. Maybe some of us just get busy, be it chopping wood outside or playing Candy Crush or another online game. Or others of us, maybe we just have to sit back and we turn on Netflix or Amazon Prime and just watch a rerun of the last season of Outlander. There are so many ways for us to withdraw from life. The German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who wrote many letters from prison at the end of the Second World War, wrote a letter when he was about ready and he knew that he most likely would be executed. And in his letter, he wrote this statement that has always stayed with me. Bonhoeffer writes, I'm quoting it in German first, Das Jenseitige ist nicht das unendliche Ferne, sondern das Nächste. Das Jenseitige ist nicht das unendliche Ferne, sondern das Nächste. That which is otherworldly, which is on the other side, the supernatural, what we think that is, it's not in the far distance away from us, but it is closest to us where we are. He's saying that when we think of Jesus' resurrection, Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. It's not resurrection and life in some future distance. It can be resurrection and life here. Das Jenseitige ist das Nächste. That which is of God, which seems far away, is closest to us. Back to the story in John 11. Jesus walks with Mary back to the house. And then together with Martha, they go to the grave where Lazarus is buried. Somebody is asked to push the stone away from the cave tomb. And Jesus looks in and calls and says, Lazarus, come out. And then the miracle happens. A man fully bound up, beyond the reach of any life we could imagine. He comes out and is living. But friends, just as miraculous to me, two other people in the story find their life too, Mary and Martha. Mary, who is beyond herself, who may have been on the other edge of sanity, comes back to life and finds reality. And Martha, who is numb and dull to grief, completely deadened on the inside, she too finds life again. Friends, this is not just a singular story of coming to life. This is a story of three siblings. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, each in their own ways of finding life. 6 years ago, my youngest son went on to an overseas high school exchange. And as the weeks went by, it became clear to me that he became unhappier and unhappier. He began telling us stories of his host family not paying attention to him at all, too much drinking happening there. And he talked about feeling depressed and angry and not knowing what to do. And I, as his father, felt helpless to do something. I was outraged on his behalf. I wanted to step in and do something. I called the host parents, but to no avail. And if any of you has ever experienced that, you have somebody you care for and you love and you want to help them, and there's nothing you can do. It's as if your hands are bound. I began to feel more and more despondent and destitute. And then, as I am prone to do, I circled and cycled down. I wondered, what was it about me, about my parenting? Had I not been a good enough parent to give him the internal resources to cope in this situation? Was I so messed up as a person that I had messed up my son? I began feeling ashamed. And in my own way, I was deadened. And one day a friend came and he sat me down and he said, Walter, what is up? You're not yourself anymore. And I told him the story, and he looked at me and says, Walter, I get that you're worried and anxious, but you need to let go for a moment. Help him take some time that he can figure out what's going on with his life. And you're taking responsibility for everything. Do you think you need to be the perfect parent? We all parent as good as we can. You need to hold it a bit less tightly. And if you're worried, don't make it about yourself. And I wish I could tell you that right then everything changed for me, but that was not true. It took days, and maybe even a week or two, for me to step back and find some form of equanimity, some way to come back to life, to trust that he would have the resources to work things out. Walter, my friend, said, and for me, that is another small form of resurrection. Friends, we all need these resurrection stories. And even saying that, I am not saying that the large resurrection story, that the arc of the universe moves towards justice for everyone, and that all shall be well in the end, that's not important. It is important. But what we need are small stories of resurrection in the here and now to sustain us. Sustain you and me in these unsettled times. To give us some form of life. To help us breathe when we don't know our way out. That we know when Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life, that it's valid for each one of us. At the end of this meditation, I want to read to you a German poem by the German poet Marie-Louise Kaschnitz. I will read it to you first in German, so you get a sense of it in the language, and then I will translate it for you. It's called Auferstehung. Manchmal stehen wir auf, stehen wir zur Auferstehung auf. Mitten am Tage mit unserem lebendigen Haar, mit unserer atmenden Haut, nur das Gewohnte um uns. Keine Fata Morgana von Palmen mit weidenden Löwen und sanften Wölfen. Die Weckuhren hören nicht auf zu ticken, ihre Leuchtzeiger löschen nicht aus. Und dennoch leicht und dennoch unverwundbar, geordnet in geheimnisvolle Ordnung, vorweggenommen in ein Haus aus Licht. Manchmal stehen wir auf, stehen wir zur Auferstehung auf. Sometimes we rise to the resurrection. Mitten am Tage mit unserem lebendigen Haar, mit unserer atmenden Haut. In the middle of the day, with our living hair and our breathing skins. Nur das Gewohnte ist um uns. Only that which we know, the usuals around us. Keine Fata Morgana mit Palmen, keine weidenden Löwen und sanften Wölfen. No Fata Morgana of palm trees, of grazing lions and gentle wolves. The alarm clock, die Weckuhren hören nicht auf zu ticken, ihre Leuchtzeiger löschen nicht. The alarm clock does not stop ticking, the display does not extinguish. Und dennoch leicht und verwundbar. And yet gently, irresistibly, ordered in a secret, mysterious order, vorweggenommen in ein Haus aus Licht, anticipated in a house of life and light. And you, friends, I hope too that you experience these small resurrections in your days, and that we as a community help each other experience those small resurrections. May it be so. Amen. I will now play for you a song, and if you know this one, I invite you to join along. It's a Carrie Newcomer song called If Not Now, Tell Me When. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment, if times and time again. If not now, tell me when. I see sorrow and trouble in this land. I see sorrow and trouble in this land. Although there will be struggle, we'll make the change we can. If not now, tell me when. I may never see the promised land. I may never see the promised land. And yet we'll take the journey and walk it hand in hand. If not now, tell me when. So we'll work till it's done. Every daughter, every son, every soul that's ever longed for something better, something brighter. It will take a change of heart for this to mend. It will take a change of heart for this to mend. But miracles do happen every shining now and then. If not now, tell me when. But miracles do happen every shining now and then. If not now, tell me when. Now, friends, this is a time where we take in the service, where we normally take to share our prayers and concerns. And although we are not seeing each other, do know that we, each one of us, is part of a shared fabric, that we are all individual, beautiful strands in a cloth together, and that all of our prayers and concerns and thoughts, that we can put them into our community and into the gentle holding hands of God. So what I invite you to do now is to take a minute while I play some music to put out your prayers into our community. If you would like to, you could comment on share your prayers in the comment section, or just keep some silence and know that we are all holding you in your prayers. And friends, now before we come to the end of our service, I want to invite you now, if you are moved and want to share in the ministry of our church, to donate for us, to share this Sunday online. And there are 3 ways for you to do this. First, if you want to, you could just text a dollar amount to Venmo, and the number is 1-855-943-2320. I myself, who am not technologically very savvy, I learned that pretty quickly when Anamika taught me. So you just send a text to 855-943-2320, and you put in an amount, and then it will lead you through all the steps. You can also use PayPal, and just connect it with our email address, office@corvallisucc.org. And you can also go and refer others to our webpage at corvallisucc.org/giving. One last thing before we close our service. This morning I experienced a little resurrection that made my day. When I came here to the church, I found an email by Marion Whitney. And Marion sent me this beautiful poem, which reminded me of all the small resurrections that are possible. And I have not written it out here because I still need her permission, if she chooses to share it with everybody. But that was one of the small resurrections I experienced. And know that all our prayers that we bring into this community, both Pastor Jen and myself, if you leave us a message or if you write it into the comment section, know that we will each take time in our prayer practice to pray for those prayer requests. And I ask you to do the same thing, to pray for one another, to listen to one another, to be gentle with one another, because these are hard times. And at the end of this time together, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Holy One let the light of the Holy shine upon you. May the countenance of God turn towards you, that you feel grief, no grief, that in your grief you know that you are held, that you know that you are loved. And I just see now that Marion Whitney has given me permission to read the poem. But let me see if I can pull this off, because I'm here recording on my smartphone and I'd have to pull the poem up. So if I can pull this off, I will do it. But if not, I'll ask Anamika to help me find a way to put it on our church Facebook page. Friends, I'm not able to do it this morning, but we will publish it online, and I invite you to share in with Marion's little or big resurrection experience. Thank you, and I'm so glad to know that we're a community together.